Coming up next on Rap About It with Mal Adams, the great and inimitable jazz guitarist Calvin Keys. Calvin Keys is a legend among soul jazz fans and known for his lean, muscular, single-string solo style. He was born in 1942 in Omaha, Nebraska. His first musical influence was his father Otis, a well-known drummer, who passed the music bug on to Calvin. In 1971, he signed with Black Jazz label, released a pair of albums and played in the Ray Charles Orchestra. Keys' unique phrasing and his ability to balance sophisticated jazz harmonics with tough rhythm and blues and soul grooves were showcased nightly in the Charles Band. By 1975, Keys had relocated to the San Francisco Bay Area, where he became, and remains, an avid participant in the jazz community. He worked in live performance settings and recording sessions with John Handy, Bobby Hutcherson, Eddie Marshall, Bob Gray, Ed Kelly, Eddie Duran, Bruce Forman, Junius Simmons, and Eddie Moore. He was sidelined in 1997 by heart surgery, undergoing a quadruple bypass. Undaunted, he released the widely acclaimed Detours into Unconscious Rhythms on Wide Hive Records and toured in the US and Europe. In 2005, Keys recorded Calvin-esque for Silverado. The album hit number 30 on the jazz charts. In 2006, he released Vertical Clearance, followed by Handmade Portrait on Silverado. Calvin Keys remains active on the jazz scene today with frequent appearances in San Francisco Bay Area venues. He is a member and teacher of the Oakland Public Conservatory. He also mentors upcoming musicians, gives private lessons, and is a frequent teacher at Jazz Camp West. Stay right here for the upcoming edition of Rap About It with Mal Adams featuring the great Calvin Keys. You'll be glad you did. Thank you.
You're tuned to GNN, the Global News Network, a division of Toetown Communications Company Limited. Toetown presents Japan Journal. Japan Journal with Mal Adams, the Internet's #1 English language weekly online cybercast from Japan. And now your host, Mal Adams.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Rap About It, a series of Japan Journal, the Internet's #1 weekly English language online cybercast from Japan. We're streaming to you live all over the world on GNN, the Global News Network, a social media network of the Toetown Communications Group Japan. And this program is being presented by Toetown Communications Company Limited, Toetown Records, Adams International Academy, Toetown Tea, and yes, Mal's Bar, now known as Mama's Bar. We thank you for watching and thank you for your ongoing support. We invite you to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, share us, and feel free to leave a comment. All of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our guest today. Please join me in welcoming the great jazz, soul, and blue guitarist, Mr. Calvin Keys. Brother, welcome.
All right then, Brother Adams. Thank you for having me here.
It's my pleasure, man. It's been a long time in coming, and we haven't done this since 2007, if it hits me right. But it wasn't a sit down; it was an impromptu situation.
Yes, it was.
And Omaha, baby, folks. This is my big hometown brother, man. We are
right on.
Omaha, Nebraska.
Near north side.
Near north side.
All right.
So listen, man, let me just get in from the beginning. First of all, my condolences to your beloved mother making her transition, man. I know that was recently. Let's start there, man. Tell me about your mom. What was her name? And How did she influence your musical education?
Well, my mother's name was Ruby Alverta Smith. That was her maiden name. She married my father, Otis Calvin Keys, divorced him and married Hugo Smith,
Okay.
and had 2 kids by Hugo, divorced him, and then she was married to Sidney Smith.
There's a lot of Smiths.
And her maiden name was Smith.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So I said, Mama, you just a Smith girl. She said, I guess so. But she made her transition on August the 5th, which was her birthday. And she was 99 years old on her birthday, August 5th.
Wow, man.
That's when she made her transition.
And was she in Omaha when she passed? Or what?
Nebraska, yes.
Oh,
3536 North 28th Street.
is that where you grew up?
Yeah, basically, yeah, after we came out of the projects on 31st and late Hilltop Projects, yes.
You were in the Hilltop. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they first opened, I turned 12 years old when we moved into them projects.
All right.
And I won't forget, because Mama said, son, until you're 12 years old, all your sins is on me. When you turn 12, they're on you. So we moved into the projects when I turned 12, and I straightened up. I said, yep, I had to get rid of them little eggheads that I was hanging out with. But it all worked out though, man. That was beautiful.
Man, that was
she made her transition when she was 99. And so I went home the next day, and she said she had left directions to my siblings that she wanted 2 hours to be seen in the funeral home. And the next day, she wanted to be buried up at the cemetery next to her husband. And that's what we did. And it was beautiful.
Wow, that's great. Well, my condolences, man. That's something. But you had a long time, 99 years, buddy.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So blessed to hang that long, huh?
Yeah, she was. Mom told me something. When I had a birthday in February, she said, Calvin, I've been praying to the Lord that he let me live long enough to see my firstborn turn 80 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Mom, he blessed you and blessed me too, because I just turned 80 this morning.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus, man.
And she told me, she said, I've never wanted you to become a musician. But I said, if you're going to be one, try to be the best. And there's something I want to tell you, and I don't want you to ever forget it. I said, what's that, Mom? She said, be careful, because you always get what you want.
Oh, I see.
It took me 30 years to figure out what she was saying, but she knew exactly what she was saying. And that was some of the most encouraging
advice
she ever said to me.
Well, what did she mean by that? What do you think she actually meant? You are a type of person that when you strive for something, you accomplish it. Is that it?
We all do that. She said, be careful, because you always get what you want. In my lifetime, I realized that I thought I wanted some things that I didn't want. I didn't need them. So most of the things I always wanted was to be able to play the guitar and do some recordings and have my own records.
But when did you realize that? How old were you in Omaha at that time?
When I turned 12, when we moved into the projects.
Wow, wow.
See, I started looking at life in a whole different perspective. Like I said, I was down there hanging out with some friends of mine that I will not mention their names.
Yeah.
And we used to break in a few houses.
Okay.
And we used to go into the grocery store and turn the guy's neck, turn his eyes so he couldn't see us taking candy and stuff. We always had some mischievous things going on. But when I turned 12, I realized that I was going to have to quit doing that. And that's when I ran into my uncle, who was a guitar player playing. Uncle Ivory, he played the blues. And I used to watch him. And I'd come home from school, and go down in the basement and hook up his guitar.
Okay.
And start playing with it. And that was the beginning. I was 13.
Now, before you moved in the projects, where were you in Omaha?
The last place that I knew of was over on 25th and Hamilton.
Wow, okay.
Up the street from Kellum School.
Sure, sure.
And but see, my uncle was a very great influence on me too, because my dad was a drummer, but his mother, my grandmother, and my mother thought that all musicians was crazy. Thought they were, drug addicts or alcoholics or womenizers,
Yeah.
and gamblers. So he didn't have a chance. So I think I inherited his musical germ. Was passed on to me. But like I said, it came out through my Uncle Ivory, who played the blues on the guitar. And I used to watch him.
Did you ever play with your father or watch him play in clubs?
Yeah, I seen him play one time with the Carolina Cotton Pickers.
But he's Omaha-based cat, right?
Yeah. He played with Preston Love, too. They grew up together.
Wow, okay.
And he played with Preston. But then the Carolina Cotton Pickers came to Omaha, and they needed a drummer. So I think that was his biggest thing he ever did, was play with them.
That was his ticket.
Yeah, that was his ticket. But he never did turn professional. But when I left and moved to California and started traveling and things, I would go back home. And each time I go home, took another step. And he said, damn, Calvin, he said, you must be one of the greatest guitar players on the planet. I said, Daddy, I'm just one of many. I'm still searching for that note. And one time I was at the showcase, and I said, you know what I want you to do? He said, what? I said, I want you to get up here and play with me. He said, I can't play with. I said, Daddy.
Wow.
I don't want to hear it. Get up here and play with me.
Okay.
So he got up on the drums and played with me with that 4/4 bass drum and shuffle. And that was the first time he played with me, man. It was beautiful. Then I got my daddy to play with me.
Man.
And he never forgot that.
Well, you never forgot it either. That had to impact you in some way.
Oh, it did.
Huh?
So it did impact me. So it gave me some more inspiration and everything. Because when I first left Omaha and went on the road with Little Walking Wooly, and we went to St. Louis, Missouri. I think I might have been 16 or 17. And
I don't know that name. He wasn't that famous, was he?
Saxophone player.
I see.
And he had a grandfather in Omaha. So he came to Omaha and made the clubs, and he seen me playing at the Offbeat.
Okay.
He needed a guitar player for a month, because I think his got busted for driving while he was drunk or something.
Okay.
But he asked me, could I go on the road with him for $125 a week? I said, well, you'd have to come home and ask my mom.
How old were you?
I was, I think I was 16, maybe.
But you were still up in the Offbeat.
Yeah, I'd already got out of school.
Okay.
And because she said, well, I don't want you to leave because you got to finish school. I had all my credits and everything.
Where did you go? Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah, by the projects, yeah. Walking distance.
He came and asked her, and she said no. And so I was so upset. After he left, and I thought about it, and I got up the next morning. I told Mama. I said, Mama, we've always been honest with each other, and you taught me how to be honest with you and everything. I said, well, I'm saying that to say that I'm gonna go on the road with Little Walking Wooly if I have to leave while you sleep. And she said, really? I said, yes. She said, okay. That's when she said, well, Junior, I don't want you to be no musician, but if you're just going to be one, try to be the best. And that's when she said, one thing I'm going to tell you, I don't want you to ever forget it. Be careful. You always get what you want. Wow. I went on the road with Little Walking Wooly, and we went to Riviera Ballroom in St. Louis, Missouri for 3 days.
Wow.
And he had this girl singing with him named Jewel Brenner.
Okay.
She was 6'2", 40, beautiful.
Wow.
And she had on a wig. So she couldn't sing a lick, But when she got up and sang her number and everything, we got through with her. She would bend over and her wig would fall off. And she was all head like you, Brenner.
Oh man.
But you, Brenner.
Yeah,
That was the hook. That was the hook.
That was the hook, baby. How would you not remember Jewel Brenner?
Yeah. So when I went on the road, we went to Riviera Ballroom for 3 weeks, St. Louis, and then we went to Cleveland, Ohio, at this club called oh man, what's the name of that club in Cleveland? I can't, but anyway, I stayed at the Majestic Hotel.
So you rode with him for a while. That wasn't just
well, I went out with him for 4 weeks.
Okay.
He told me, I'm gonna give you $125 a week, and I'm gonna take care of your rent and everything.
Was he a blues cat?
Yeah, he played the blues. Yeah, he would walk the bar. Little Walking Woolly. That's why they call him Walking Woolly. He get to playing and get up on the bar and walk from one end to the bar, the other end, and come on back down. You know, Little Walking Woolly.
Wow.
And so we did Gleason's in Cleveland for 2 weeks. And then we left Gleason's and went to McKeesport, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Pittsburgh, for a week. And that's when he called me, he said, Calvin, my guitar player is back, so I'm gonna have to send you back to Omaha. I said, really? He said, yes. And he said, but I have to thank you because you really saved me. And I liked your playing and everything, and thank you. And so you can go on back home. And so his guitar player came in and got up on the bandstand and played. He played so much guitar, I crawled under the table because I was kind of embarrassed. I didn't know nothing about the guitar, but he showed me, he showed me a couple of cards and inspired me and told me to keep doing what I was doing. And so I went on back to Omaha. I got on the train, went back to Omaha. I had $500 in my pocket, and I was a little undecided because watching him play, I said, oh man, I'll never play like that. And then he encouraged me to do it anyway. And then I said, now what am I gonna do in Omaha, man? Ain't nothing like this going on in Omaha.
Well, let me ask you, before you transition into that, how did you get your chops good enough at 16 years old to go out on the road with a professional and play? Self-taught? You taught by self-taught, or did you take lessons? Or?
I was self-taught. And we had 3 or 4 different guitar players in Omaha. Papa Luther Guitar Woodrow, the Night Riders. And then I worked with this band called Dr. Spider and his Rock and Roll Webs at the First and Last Chance over in South Omaha. And then I worked with Andre and the Ramrods at the Junior Workman's Club.
Now, that wasn't Andre Lewis, was it?
No, that wasn't him, no.
Okay.
But and so I was working in different clubs. I worked in the Apex.
Oh yeah, now you're getting into my generation.
so that was the beginning of it, man.
Wow.
And so the showcase was the Dang Allen's showcase.
Oh, Paul Allen! Shout out to Paul Allen.
His wife Dorothy was the one who stayed on his case about me.
Okay.
She said, Calvin got a certain talent. She said, Paul, you keep him working.
I remember we called her Aunt Dorothy. Paul and my dad were like brothers, man.
I needed a new guitar. Paul went down to hospice and co-signed for it. Okay. And I paid. He said, Calvin, I knew you was going to become something because out of all the musicians I signed to get the instruments, you the only one ever paid for yours. Wow. I said, really? But then that's how I got good enough to go out with Little Walking Woolly. And so after I came home from McKeesport, Mama said, what you gonna do now, Calvin? I said, I don't know, sweetie. I never recovered, really. And so I told her, I said, my daddy had moved to Kansas City. I told her, I said, well, you know what I think I'm gonna do, Mom? I'm gonna go down to Kansas City with my daddy. And so I went on down to Kansas City. And he was staying on 12th Street at this hotel. And I went down there and checked in. And I went out and got a job in this club called the Nightingale on 12th and Woodland, I think. Okay. I was working, I got me a bass player and a drummer, and I was working 6 nights a week in 5 matinees.
You put your own band together.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The blues.
Now that's Kansas City, Missouri, right? That was the joint where all the music was for the region, for the Midwest, right?
Really, that's where Bird from. Charlie Parker.
Bird
Hey man, it was
yeah, cats like Leslie Young, Oklahoma, down in there, man.
all of them. Everybody.
It's amazing. And so did you catch some of those cats and hear some?
Every chance I got, I went over to the Union Hall on 19th and Vine, and they had plenty of musicians learning, studying, coming up with different things, man, about the music, Count Basic. You know, I didn't know who
that was it, man. And of course, Preston Love, you shouted him out, but he sat first chair on the alto, right?
Basic band, that's right. But see, when I got to Kansas City and started my own group, I went into a whole nother thing, see. And so I worked for Happy Bruno for almost a year and a half. And I'm steady learning. You know, I'm meeting other musicians and they sharing with me. And I'm doing a little self-taught reading, you know, studying and stuff. And then I went back to Omaha. I felt a little more advanced.
Okay.
Because I had been learning.
Let me pin you down on that because I'm interested about this process. People like to say, "Oh, these great black musicians, it's intuitive. You know, they don't study; they just got it." But tell me about your process. How did you acquire the knowledge? And you had, of course, you had hearing and you had feeling and you had rhythm because you're a rhythm guitarist, you know. But talk to me a little bit about that for our young listeners who might want to pick up something about how to improve. What were you doing?
Well,
what was your process?
You're only as good as who you're with. In order to get I got with some of the better musicians who were much older than me.
Interesting.
They would pass certain ideologies down to me, certain techniques.
Wow. See?
You know, and say, don't do it like that, Calvin, you do it like this. You know, and I said, oh, okay. And I go home and practice.
Wow.
And there was a guitar player in Kansas City named Leonard Enoys, who was a mother. And he was on the level of Wes Montgomery, and a bunch of other cats, and all the musicians knew him. And Jeep Gridiron was another guitar player. I used to hang out with all the guitar players.
Man, these names are killing me. These names, you remember them all, though.
But hey, you know, that's what it was. And so each time I'm steady getting a little better. So I go back to Omaha. And so when I get back to Omaha, I feel a little more stronger because I've learned some things, you know.
Give me a year, roughly. When was that? You talking about the early 60s?
Well, I'm thinking about maybe
early 60s, yeah.
Maybe the late 50s.
Late 50s, okay.
Yeah. So I go back home, and well, in 1960, this boy came from Kansas City named Frank Edwards, and he was in the service, and he got discharged. Organ player, master organ player. So he got booked in the showcase. So he came to Omaha and auditioned a few guitar players, and he chose me. So I started working with Frank Edwards at the showcase, Allen Showcase, which was the entrance to the Chitlin circuit that we came up with.
Sure.
And so the beginning of the Chitlin circuit was Kansas City, OG's Lounge. We worked 2 months there, and then we come to Omaha and work 2 months at the showcase, and leave there and go to Denver, Colorado, work 2 months at the Leroy's Voters Club, and then we go to San Francisco to the Booker T. Washington Hotel with Charles Sullivan, worked 2 months there, come to Oakland to Don Barksdale Sportsman, and then maybe his showcase. In each one of these clubs, we're working 2 weeks at a time.
Wow.
I mean, 2 months, I'm sorry. And making $150 a week.
Wow.
1960, 61, 62, 63 through 66. That was good money then. So you're like 17, 18-year-old youngster.
You're born in 1942 or 43?
42.
So you're my sister's age. So you just turned 80. She did too. So that's my sister Madeline. I don't know if y'all ever knew each other, but yeah, you know my brother
That was
Mark.
good money then. I was a young man. I'm like 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yeah.
And that was good money then. And so we'd work 2 months, 8 weeks in each one of those clubs. So that was a chitlin circuit. So Kansas City, Omaha, Denver, San Francisco, Oakland. So I was in the Bay Area. I was traveling 6, 7 months out of the year.
Wow. That's why we never saw you around Omaha.
I was moving, man. I was moving. So we go, and so when we ended up in the last club we worked in Oakland was Esther's Orbit Room in West Oakland on 7th Street.
Okay.
And there was a gentleman named Geddings who had a record company. And he would go through the neighborhood with the 45s that he would make, sell them to the hoods. We couldn't compete against all them big record companies.
No.
He'd sell the 45s and most of the blues artists that was known and so on and so forth. And so I ended up going back to Kansas City with Frank. So I worked with Frank all the way up from 1960, 61 through 65 on that chitlin circuit. And then I get to the point, and see, Frank introduced me to a lot of music that I didn't know about because he knew he could play saxophone and he played the organ. Jimmy Smith and them loved him. Jack McDuff, Jimmy McGriff, all of them loved Frank.
McGriff, yeah.
In the meantime, Frank is turning me on to Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Arthur Red Prysock, and all the musicians, And so I'm steady getting better. So I'm getting to the point now, I don't, the organ is okay. But then Jimmy Smith hit the scene. He turned the organ around.
Yes, he did.
Kenny Burrell and Donald Bailey. And so I'm saying, oh, man, that's where I want to get to. But then the group we had, Richard Ross on drums, Frank Edwards on the organ, and myself on guitar, we developed a nice repertoire.
Okay.
Going through these different clubs over the country.
So what kind of music you talking about? It was a jazzy, bluesy stuff or what?
Yeah, it was a chitlin circuit. That's what we called it. But see, I'm getting
blue. I'm talking about John. Because it's jazz, it's fusion, all kind of labels. What was the music you were playing at that time?
Most of the blues, and we was doing a little swinging.
Okay.
See, I'm steady learning. I'm steady looking better. And so I said, I'm getting tired of this organ. I said, I think I might want to get with me a piano player. Piano was the granddaddy of all the instruments.
Okay.
And so in Denver, I just happened to see Ahmad Jamal was working at the Red Embers.
Wow.
And I said, I'm going to go over here and see if I can play something with Ahmad because I'm very fond of his music. And I had 6 aunts and 8 uncles. And all they played on the weekend was Ahmad. Because that album, Ponciana, Live at the Prison, was so popular.
Sure. It was big. And I'm a little cat. And my brother Ralph, who would be 85 right now, introduced me to Ahmad Jamal. On the near north side, they call it Amajama.
Yeah, that's right. So I walked up to him at the Red Embers and asked him, could I sit in with him? He said, no, young man, I have a closed set. I said, okay. So I continued to work with Frank, and then when something happened, I left Frank and I started working with some more organ players around Denver. And I'm still saying to myself, I want to work with me a piano player. And so I came back to Omaha, and went back to Kansas City and started another organ group. So the year 67 and 68, I worked in OG's Lounge in Kansas City. I was working 5 nights a week and two nights over in Kansas. And I had a jam session going on Saturdays. Matter of fact, Pat Metheny used to come down to the jam session, but he never got up and played. His dad used to bring him down there.
Well, wait a minute. Now you're still in the 60s or late 60s now?
Yeah, I'm in the 60s. I'm in the middle of 60s. I'm in 60s.
And that you mean you ran into Pat Metheny back then?
Well, he didn't. I didn't know him. See, I hadn't met him.
Well, and
He
he ended up writing a tune about you.
His daddy used to bring him down there.
Oh,
And
wow.
he never got up and sit in. So I never met Pat Metheny until some years later.
But didn't he write a song called
Yes, he did. That's what I'm getting to.
Calvin's Keys?
Yeah, right. That's part of it, see.
Wow, okay.
So I decided I wanted to move to LA from Kansas City. And so I worked 67 and 68. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm getting ready to go to move to Los Angeles. Because I didn't want to move to New York because, it was more action. I've been to LA before. And so I worked 67 and 68. And then I came home for 68. I worked at the Showcase and brought in the new year, the 69. So I worked at the Showcase, brought the new year in. In the meantime, I done bought me a brand new Buick. I had me a new tie and a new wardrobe and a couple of dollars. And
okay, let me interject something right here.
Mm-hmm.
That now you said 69.
Yes.
At 19 years old, I started in the news business behind Harold Dow at Omaha Channel 7, right?
Wow.
But the year before, I graduated from Central in 1967, and in 1968, I saw you play for the first time. That's really when I got on there. You came to University of Omaha and did a session for the Black Student Union or something. You remember that? And vaguely, right? But
yeah.
But it was the biggest thing, man. Calvin Key's homeboy, man, baddest cat.
But so I moved to Los Angeles in March of 69.
Okay.
And I had a brand new 1969 deuce and a quarter Buick. And I ended up selling that Buick in 1972 with 130,000 miles on it.
Wow.
And I did that in 2.5 years.
Wow.
Went in and out them joints looking for some work.
Served you well.
All of a sudden, I get a call from Ray Charles. He heard about this young guitar player in town with a new car, and he's sharp, got some class and everything. So I went down and auditioned for Ray, and he hired me.
He heard about you?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's what's part of LA, and that's what's part of Ray's thing. Any African-American musician coming to Los Angeles, just saying something, he got to go through the Ray Charles Orchestra. See, that was part of the deal. I didn't know it then. But I went down there and auditioned and got the gig.
Wow.
So I started working with Ray in 1971, I think.
Wow.
But then Larry Gales had left Thelonious T. Monk and moved to LA and had him a after-hours coffee shop over in Leimert Park off of Crenshaw.
Sure.
And that's where all the musicians hung out because Larry T. was from Thelonious Monk.
Wow.
Everybody wanted to play with Larry Gales. And so we'd go over there and hang out after hours. And so they had a piano player to come through there named Gene Russell. Gene asked, he said, Calvin, he says, how you feel about recording? I said, that's what I'm trying to do. He said, well, I'm getting ready to start this record label called Black Jazz Records. You be interested in joining this? I said, I'd love to. So I had already hooked up with Doug and Gene Carr, Michael Carvin, and the piano player that played with Bird. Oh man, I can't think of his name. But anyway, and now I started studying. But I'm working with Ray now all the time. I got me a steady income. Ray took a break. We took a hiatus. And so I started studying with Irvin Ashby.
Okay.
Irvin Ashby was a guitar player with Nat King Cole.
Wow.
I used to drive to Paris, California, which was 60 miles from LA, and take lessons from Irvin. Irvin had a big blonde L7 guitar. He said, can you learn how to play this one? I'm going to give this to you. But my hand, I was so small, I couldn't play that. He played like it was a toy.
Yeah, I've seen photos of it. That looked like a cello, man.
gave me a book, one of his books. And he said, Cal, this is a book that I wrote, you know, and I want to give it to you. I said, okay. And he said, if you go through my book 1, you will learn how to play the guitar. I said, okay. But he said, if you go through my book 2, you will become a guitarist.
Mm-mm.
And I said, what? I ain't never heard it put to me like that.
Hey.
And sure enough, man, I went
Now
through,
that you think of it.
hey, man, I started studying out his book and getting some things, some nice tunes and chords and scales and stuff. And then I realized that all of a sudden, I ain't getting no gigs. So I said, oh, shit, I'm going to have to go back out with Ray. So I ended up going back out with Ray because I had a steady income then.
Sure.
Know. But I had to quit. I had to give up Irving. But in the meantime, when I came in LA, I would start studying orchestration with this brother named, Ernest L. Crawford.
Okay.
He was a 60-year man, a classical pianist and teacher.
Mm.
I started studying with him, orchestration. I studied with him for about 2.5 years. In them 2.5 years that I studied with Ernest Crawford, it was equivalent to any 10 years stretch in any university on the planet.
Wow.
That's how bad he was.
So in that 2-year period, were you just gigging around, picking up gigs or what?
I'm working with
Based in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm working with Ray. When we come in for, off time and everything, I'm starting working in these different clubs.
Where were you living in LA at that time? You know where Adams and Western is?
Yes. The
I was right.
It was Ellis in Western.
I was on Adams and Western, my first house. When I left Omaha, went there, and it was a hotel. And the lady turned it into apartments, and I rented one on the 3rd floor. My wife from Japan, and she told me this used to be a hotel, and the woman was from Omaha.
I wonder who.
And you remember, if I could remember the name of the hotel, right there on Adams and Western. She said the flat that you're renting, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, all of them stayed in that room.
Wow.
So they would come and what's the fighter's name? Middleweight. Sugar Ray lived down the road.
Okay, well, see, I stayed. I was going with my teacher, Ernest L. Crawford. Had a one room on Crenshaw in Western.
Okay, you ran around the corner.
Building.
Yeah.
And I used to go up there and take lessons from him and give him a little herb to cool him out. And then I take him to the train stations because he loved railroad trains. He never got over trains since he was a kid. And I sat there with him and milk him for getting some more knowledge of his brain. And I said, wow. And so in the meantime, when I ain't with Ray, I'm in the pool hall.
Okay.
How to play some 9-ball in one pocket. And so the girl that I was with called me one afternoon. She said, Calvin. I said, what? Barbara K called me. I said, what? She said, Asman Jamal called here 3 times for you. I said, really? He was getting ready to open up at this club on Santa Monica. Oh, man, I can't think, because he had a lightweight hit called The World is a Ghetto. And so this club, he was getting ready to open up for 2 weeks, and they had another club, another singing group that was going to open for him. But he said, Calvin, I'm getting ready to go in here to Troubadour.
Troubadour?
Yeah, on Santa Monica. He said, I need a guitar. He said, I'm going to be there for a couple of weeks. And I got this guitar on this new album I got, and I need a guitar player. He said, are you interested? I said, of course. So I run home, take a shower, and get sharp and go on up to the Troubadour.
Wow.
And it was about 8:30. He said, well, let's go upstairs. I want to run over some music with you. So we goes up to his suite and ran over some of his songs. And he said, Calvin, do you read that well? I said, not really, Ahmad. But I told you, I said, I got 8 uncles, 6 aunties, and on the weekends, all they played was your music.
Wow.
That's how I learned some of your songs.
Wow.
I worked with him for 2 weeks at the Troubadour. He was so impressed with me, and I was impressed with him. He said, "You know what, Cameron?" I said, "I really like you playing with me." He said, "As a matter of fact, would you like to go on the road with me?" I said, "I'd be honored." So he called me for the next 2 months. He'd call me once a week. And I said, well, after 2 months, I said, "Look, what you doing, man? You pulling my leg? What's happening?" He said, "I ain't ready to." I said, "Look, I'm gonna have to go back out with Ray or something because I got to get me a job. I ain't working. I need to pay my rent and shit." He said, "Oh, okay." About a week later, I got a call from him. He said, "You got a ticket at the airport to come to New York, and I'll pick you up if I don't have somebody get you." And that was my beginning working with him.
How many years was it? How long did you work with him? 5 years?
I'm out off and on for about 10, 11 years.
Oh, man.
I did 7 albums with him.
Now, let me ask you something about technique and theory and all that. His piano playing, he's just a great virtuoso piano player, and
Whoa.
which he had to have some knowledge about reading and orchestration and all of that. But you had picked up all of this stuff. You said you studied orchestration, and you could lock with him. What was it that he liked about your playing? Did you give him that jazzy funky thing?
On the post streets yet. Excuse me.
Okay, that's what
But
I'm
see,
asking.
the thing of it was, I'm still studying with Irvin Ashby, right? And so what I do with Ahmad, he play all them different voices and
Yes, he
chords.
would. That's what I'm talking about.
And I used to go and bug Shum. I said, Ahmad, on this one tune you played, you're playing this chord, and I'm trying to figure out what could I play to compensate what you're doing and not get in your way, and
Right.
so forth. He said, "Well, just listen at it and see what you can come up with." And so I started figuring out little 3 and 4 note cards that I could play with him that would inspire him and still not get into his way.
Sure.
You know, with a guitar and piano players,
I know that was hard because he was all over the place.
we used to run it. We used to run into some train wrecks.
I'm sure.
But the more I played with him and the more he explained things with me in my ear and everything, it started coming together.
Wow.
And Mom, we used to have some of the damnedest sessions.
Wow.
And I just listen and whatever I hear, I could inspire him with. So we developed that rapport over the years.
That's great, man.
And it was incredible.
That was great.
And like I said, that was one of the most beautiful relationship to learning how to play with a piano player.
Sure.
Hey man, he told me, he said, "Calvin, you know, Miles is looking for a guitar player." I said, "So?"
So.
Dean Weston, Randy Weston's son, was playing percussion with us. And he said, "Calvin, what you gonna do about that, man?" Said, "Miles looking for a guitar player." I said, "You know what, Dean?" He said, "What?" I said, "Man, as far as I'm concerned, I'm at the mountaintop working with Ahmad."
Hey, man.
Now, I don't
Now,
need
you mentioned Randy Weston. Don't skip over that Randy Weston, the Afro jazz cat.
One of the masters.
The baddest cat, man. Wow. I didn't know he had a son, and his son was an artist as well.
Yeah, he was a genius percussionist. He was raised over in Morocco.
Wow.
Randy Weston's son, Dean Weston. Randy wrote a song called Little Niles.
Yeah.
And that was Randy. When Randy was born, when little Dean was born, Randy wrote it.
You know a cat out of New York named Alex Blake, bassist player?
Of course.
Panamanian. See, you're laughing. See, did I get the right name?
Of
Bang,
course.
bang.
Alex Blake. I played with Alex Blake when I worked with David Durock.
Oh my! See.
And Alex Blake was playing piano. He was playing bass, man. Of course.
Oh, a genius on the bass, man. Just
master. See, working with Ahmad, I got a chance to meet so many different musicians.
I know you did.
And I told Ahmad, I said, "Ahmad, when we gonna play New York?" He said, "Calvin, I don't play New York." I said, "Why not?"
Interesting.
Here. I said, well, I don't. And he booked a gig at this restaurant off of Fifth Street. We went in there.
Wait. Sorry for interrupting. Why? What did he say about not playing in New York? He didn't care to play in New York.
Well, he was from New York. That's where he lived.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And he lived in New Rochelle.
Okay.
And I stayed in the apartment in his upstairs in his house when I got tired of down on 47th Street.
Sure, you're right.
So, you know, him and his daughter used to get up. She was a violinist. She was a cello player.
Wow.
And they used to get up every morning and practice an hour before she went to school. And the New York Philharmonic wanted her.
Oh, man.
To give her the first chair. She said, I don't want to play no damn cello in no band. She's got her own office and shit. But anyway, you know, it was like, man, and when he booked this club, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but the opening night, I'm looking at Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra, and all of the top guns.
Yeah,
man. And so we worked there for a week.
Now you're in the 70s, right?
Yeah. Well, this is around 74, 75. Mm-hmm. I called back to Maria and said, come on, I want you to come to New York. She came to New York for that second week with me, with Amar. And we did the 42nd Street, a couple of theaters and things. But it was so beautiful. So she went back to Berkeley. And me and Amar, we went on to Toronto. So I called Maria back. I called back here and asked her, I said, are you all right? And she said, oh, yeah. And she said, Calvin, I just want to let you know how beautiful time I had with you in New York, with Amar and everybody. And I said, well, I want to let you know I had the same time. And we going to Toronto for a week or so, and I'll be back. When I come back, I'm going to come on back to California. And she says, when you do, by the way, this is your new address and telephone number.
What?
She asked me shit. She said, this is your new address and telephone number. 1825 Derby. I forgot the number. But and me and him.
Where's that, in Berkeley?
In Berkeley, yeah.
Okay.
Right off of Martin.
Where are you now, by the way? Where are you now? You in Berkeley?
I'm in Oakland.
You're in Oakland.
9th Avenue, off of Park Boulevard, 2 blocks from Oakland High.
Okay.
We've been together ever since. And that's going on.
It's beautiful. Beautiful.
50 years.
Yes, sir. I know.
And so, hey, and I've been working with off and on. I worked with Ahmad all the way up until, I don't know when I quit, in the 80s. Man,
you're a walking encyclopedia.
And when I left Ahmad, I had a quartet over on the Embarcadero at this restaurant called Barclay Jack's. I had a beautiful quartet. I had Dick Whittington on piano, Big Ed Williams on bass, Bob Bray on drums, and myself. I was working there Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And one night, this gentleman walked in and sat down at the table with a couple of ladies. And the waitress came over to me with a note. And the note said, Mr. Keys, I am Earl Father Hines. Would you join me for a drink? I said, damn. So I went during the break, and we sat down and I had a drink. And so we enjoyed that evening. So I went on back up there after announcing him, you know, and acknowledging him and everything.
Sure.
Next night he came back. I said, damn, there's Earl Father Hines again. So he sat down and he wrote something on a piece of paper and gave it to the waitress and told her to bring it to me.
Okay.
He brought it to me again and said to come down and have another drink with me, Calvin. I said, okay. So we took a break and I went down and sat down at his table with him. And he looked at me and he said, Calvin, he said, I got something I want to say to you. I said, what's happening, Pops? I said, is it all right to call you Pops? He said, yeah. He said, you know what, I've been listening at you. He said, you play that guitar like I used to play the piano.
Mm.
I said, what?
Ooh, I know that must have messed you up. But
Oh, man. I told my father, you know, that is one of the greatest compliments I've ever had in my life. He said, well, I'm saying that to see that band like you got up there. I said, yeah. He said, can you get a band like that for me? I said, huh? He said, can you get a band like that for me? I said, yes. He
you're
said,
looking at it.
I said, come by my house tomorrow and we're going to watch the game. And after the game, we're going to talk some business.
Okay.
He said, I want you to be my band leader, my musical director.
Oh, man.
I said, wow.
What an
So I went
honor.
to his house and it was on, man. We had a beautiful house. Oh, man, it was so beautiful.
Wow.
He was only the baddest. I mean, he was no joke, man. I mean, Father Hines was one of the most incredible pianists. And I done went from Mama Simone to Earl Father Hines.
Man.
And it was both of them were monsters. So I mean, I said, what the hell? I don't know. But anyway, that was the beginning. I worked with Father for about a couple of years, up until he died.
Now, when he heard you play and all this conversation, that was in California?
Yes.
So I think of him as a New York cat. No,
he was everywhere.
He was everywhere.
We went out on an 8-week tour when I first joined him, and we went to New York, Chicago,
okay,
and Philadelphia, I think. And when we got back to Oakland, I said, Father, we just did a hell of a tour. And he said, Calvin, that was just part of it. And he said, I got another gig coming this Sunday that I wanted to take the band and you. And we went to this big church in Chicago. And we walked in that church, and it must have been 400 or 500 people.
Sure.
We were on the bandstand, and he hit that first chord, and the whole church went nuts.
It's crazy, yeah.
Said, wow. And I've played in small churches, man, but this was something like, you thought the president of the United States had walked in.
Sure.
And he said, Calvin,
big old cathedral.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. And he said, we're going to have to do some more of these. I said, okay.
Oh.
We came on back to Oakland, man. And so we was getting ready to go out on an 8-week tour of the colleges throughout the country. And that's when he said, Cal, we closed at this club up over in San Francisco called Kimball's West.
Sure, I know Kimball's. Yeah.
Franklin, up the street from that big center. And he said, all right, Cal, he said, get prepared. He said, because we're going to leave Wednesday or Thursday. And he said, we're going to be gone for about 4 or 5 weeks. So, get prepared. I said, okay. He goes in the hospital Monday. And I told him, I said, well, Pops, I'll give you a call tomorrow, Tuesday. He said, okay. So I called the hospital, and they wouldn't let me talk to him. I said, well, what's happening? I'm his band leader. What are y'all doing? He said, well, he's under he can't be disturbed right now. And I said, okay, well, tell him I called and I'll call him back tomorrow.
Wow.
And they said, okay. Wednesday morning, my phone rang about 7:30, 8 o'clock. And they said, is this Mr. Keys? I said, yes. They said, Mr. Keys, I got some very disheartening news to tell you. I said, what are you talking about? She said, Mr. Earl Father Hines just passed this morning.
Oh, man, come on.
I said, who's playing games? Don't play no games with me. And she said, I'm sorry, I'm not playing a game. And so, man, when I found out that he had passed, man, I was like, oh,
wow.
And he had a set of pleated ties. You ever seen a pleated tie?
No.
He had 4 ties with 4 pleats in each one that he would wear. It was so sharp because he always was sharp. Father, where did you get those ties, pleated ties like that? He said, oh, he said, you ain't never seen no pleated tie, huh? I said, I haven't. I said, where did you get those ties? He said, one of my producers had them made for me over in Italy.
Yeah.
I said, really? I said, well, Pops, when you get ready to make your transition, I'm gonna do ties. He said, you
That's
got
it. You got it.
And so what happened was all of his memorabilia,
Yep.
piano, and everything was up at the University of Berkeley and University of California in Berkeley. The second floor, they took all these stuff and put them up there. And the piano and everything. And those ties are there.
Mm.
And the guy called me and told me, he said, Mr. Keys, I got some ties here. It says they're yours. And I said, those are Father Hines ties. He said, yeah. I said, well, he said, when you get ready, you come on up here and get them when you get ready. And I ain't never felt like I wanted to go get them.
Sure.
That's, so they've been
Yeah.
since, I don't know where they, I think they still up there.
Jesus.
And that was,
man.
but I'm saying, and then that's just part of some of the things that I've done working with different artists over
Let me while I got you in San Francisco, when did you start working with John Handy, who is a San Francisco cat, a Bay Area cat?
This ends part 1 of Japan Journal with Mal Adams' special series, Rap About It, featuring the great jazz guitarist, Mr. Calvin Keys. Stay tuned to this channel for part 2 of this exclusive interview. Please tap the like button, leave a comment, and share this program. Most importantly, please tap the subscribe button to be notified of part 2 of Rap About It featuring the great Calvin Keys. Feel free to browse our channel for exclusive programs and interviews seen nowhere else on the internet. You can also check our playlist to find other outstanding interviews in the Rap About It series. You'll be glad you did. Thank you.